Hunt Showdown is my favorite multiplayer shooter of all the ones I've played in the last 8 or 9 years. Not since Black Ops 2 have I really enjoyed coming back and playing a game every week with my friends as much as this one. I remember when I was younger, finishing school and clamoring to get back into another match of Call of Duty. I remember how many hours I spent playing Crucible matches with my buddies on Destiny 1 back in 2014. Each of us has memories of the games we enjoyed the most. But to be honest with you, I never expected to be talking to you about the merits and thrills of Hunt Showdown, especially considering the fact I had at one point swore off the very notion of ever playing it. You see, the fact you are all being subjected to this video is due in no small part to my friend pushing and pressuring me to finally try it out a year ago. I'm so glad that he did, because conquering this game's learning curve has been one of the most rewarding experiences a multiplayer game can offer. So, without wasting any more time, let's take a trip to the Bayou and discuss the reasons why Hunt Showdown is the most underrated multiplayer game currently on the market. With any multiplayer title, there is always a checklist of things which must work in conjunction with each other in order to provide a fun, unique, and rewarding gameplay experience. These items are weapon variety and adaptability, map design, and an overall competent game design structure. This last aspect specifically refers to how the role of a multiplayer experience functions within the maps and game modes players are entering. In this case, the main game mode of Hunt Showdown is Bounty Hunt. The goal of Bounty Hunt is to have all player teams locate clues and compete to take down a bounty target in a randomly chosen boss lair. Then the players must banish the target to secure its bounty. Upon collecting the bounty, players must traverse the map to find the nearest extraction zone and escape. There may be 2 bounties per match or only 1, but depending on whether you're playing duos or trios, there could be between 4 and 6 teams competing in a single match. The real beauty of Bounty Hunt is its variability. The game features 3 maps at present: Lawson Delta, Stillwater Bayou, and DeSalle. The maps are large, though not as big as a huge Battle Royale-sized map, but far larger than a standard FPS map like Call of Duty or Halo. Of the 3 maps, each offers a wide number of key locations, which act as potential boss lairs, though I've taken to calling them areas of engagement. These areas of engagement can be anything from a church to a farm or even a slaughterhouse. More importantly, they are all varied in their design. The way you fight in and around each of them is wholly unique to that specific area, which forces you, the player, to ask yourself some questions. How much cover is there? How many AI creatures are there in the area? Is there a sniper position? Where could traps be placed that I have to avoid? Each area of engagement offers a refreshingly different feeling from the others. There are locations I love to fight around, and there are places I loathe to even go near. At this point, for any match, the variables are already overwhelming, but there's so much more one has to consider. And that's where this game's biggest issue arises: the overwhelming nature of its learning curve. A friend of mine referred to Hunt Showdown as the Dark Souls of shooter games. This has nothing to do with a preset difficulty level. Rather, it has everything to do with the amount of practice and knowledge one has to accumulate to become proficient at playing it. Once you've learned and adjusted to one thing, there's something else to remember. It is a bit intimidating, but nothing worthwhile is ever easy. Let's start with discussing guns and equipment. There are a vast number of guns and tactical goodies to spice up the playing field. Everything serves its own purpose, and no weapon is perfect. You can be efficient with any weapon from the game's loaded arsenal. However, do not go into this game expecting to start owning everybody in a match the second you unlock a cool new gun. Each weapon has its own period of adjustment, which does add to the already burdensome learning curve of the game itself. Shotguns are powerful up close, but will fall short beyond that. Among the shotguns you have pump action, double barrel, single barrel, semi-auto, and sawed-off variants. All of these have range or damage trade-offs, which make choosing one a gamble every time. Pistols offer a great variety of short, medium, and potential long-range opportunities, but are not always as lethal as a primary rifle. Lever-action rifles are great for unloading multiple rounds at a quicker fire rate, but range and damage are less efficient than long rifles. Bolt-action rifles offer greater damage and better accuracy in long-distance engagements, but reloading a partially empty chamber will result in the loss of a bullet, unless the player has the bullet grubber perk. Single-shot rifles such as Sparks offer heavy damage, but the player must reload after every shot. Do you see how there's a give and a take going on here? Each weapon grants both a benefit and a disadvantage to its wielder. Like everything else in this game, weapon attachments operate the same way, though here they're more like weapon variants. The player can only have one at a time. Choosing one takes away the other. Will you use a long scope on a rifle or a suppressor? Will you use a short scope or a bayonet? Ammunition types are a big factor in any hunt match. For example, with shotguns you have slugs, fire rounds, bleeding rounds, and penny shot. Slugs tighten the blast spread but give you greater range. Fire rounds are nice, but 2 are required to ignite an enemy, which means you have to get really close and hit an enemy player twice before they hit you. Penny shot does more damage to zombies and monsters, but at the cost of range and damage to other player hunters. Now, a question forms in one's mind. Which of these ammo types will work best for the shotgun you use? More than that, which combination of the two is of better use at short-range assaults and/or short-range defense, depending on your situation? This constant cycle of pro and con to basic loadout decisions offers more complexity than you might give it credit for initially. You see, the variability of the game design and the adaptability of hunters, or players in this instance, is of paramount importance to Hunt's gameplay loop. Let's say another team of hunters comes across your team while you're crossing a field. They have long-range weapons, while your team only carries medium and short-range weapons. You could try to stay pinned down and hope they come to you, though this isn't likely in most cases, as hunters with long rifles who are sure of their aim will likely keep their advantage as long as possible. You could attempt to see if flanking them and forcing a short-range engagement is open to exploit. This has worked before in my own experience. Although the best option would be for your team to lure the enemy hunters closer to a more defensible location, perhaps Golden Acres or Lawson Station as examples. There, your team could turn the advantage around by changing the layout of the fighting area from long to short range, just like that. It's the malleable nature of the moment-to-moment encounters which make Hunt truly stand out from the rest of the pack. Equipment and the like serve an equally significant purpose. Players have access to a variety of consumables and tools such as firebombs, dynamite, flash bombs, frag bombs, and many others. This is in addition to choke bombs, knives, traps, concertina wire, and decoy throwables. These tools give the player a great slew of opportunities to traverse the maps with a box full of tricks at their disposal. Choke bombs might seem simple at first, but they serve a multitude of uses. When an enemy player is getting too close, you can chuck a choke bomb in their direction to flush them out or to get them coughing to reveal their position. More than that, choke bombs prove useful as insta-kill against immolators, a special enemy type which can be quite annoying to deal with. Since choke bombs act as a counter-agent to fire, they also prove useful in extinguishing teammates who have been set on fire. The number of options each item has unto itself is really impressive. I really love to see a shooter game embrace its sandbox elements, and Hunt Showdown truly maximizes its sandbox. There are so many things I could talk about with regards to weapon and equipment variety, but the last one I'll bring up here is the Hive Bomb. This baby is my most treasured chaos-wreaking throwable. The Hive Bomb, or Bug Bomb as I call it, is just about the most appropriate in-game analogy for what the Hunt Showdown experience is actually like. Throwing a Hive Bomb is a gamble, but if used properly can be invaluable in flushing out or scaring enemy hunters. The jar shatters on impact, and a swarm of stinging insects are released to attack the nearest hunter in its proximity. In some cases, should you fail to throw it far enough, you become the closest hunter to the swarm, and they return to attack you instead. This risk-reward of either helping or hurting yourself is part of the fun of using this throwable. In most instances, you can avoid getting stung by your own swarm by taking a little careful planning ahead of time. But then, the randomness of Hunt's world is the beauty and curse of its design. I feel like the player has to accept the uncertainty of the world Hunt drops you into in order to grow to actually love it as much as I do. The burden of the learning curve and the unforgiving brutality of each map's play environment are the two most important factors new players must contend with when trying this game for the first time. Perhaps the most important gameplay mechanic a player has at their disposal is the power of the game's sound design, which on its own is worthy of winning any and every award for sound design ever conceived. Noise is the great equalizer in the Bayou. Not one single weapon or tool at your disposal is as helpful or hurtful to the player as noise. Each of the 3 maps Hunt offers are chock full of frightened horses, screeching crows, quacking ducks, crushed glass, clinking cans, rustling bushes, snapping twigs, and the lumbering footsteps of other players. This makes playing this game with a headset practically a necessity. Your job is to always be wary of not only other hunters, but also the surrounding environment. What lies in front and behind you? Are there sticks I could step on and snap? Is there a zombie who will become agitated if I get too close, alerting others to where I am? The difference between life and death in this game can be as simple as crouching instead of walking. Making sure you make less noise than the enemy hunters is an advantage in itself. A suppressed weapon can be very useful in dispatching environmental threats and irritating special enemy types from a distance, without making much noise. Being mindful of the ground in and around boss layers is really tricky too, due to there being so many sound traps scattered about. If you play your cards right, you can sneak around and find yourself a vantage point without alerting the enemy hunters. As with anything else, learning the layout of locations and how to best maneuver around as quietly as possible takes practice. Even as I tell you all this, I know some people will likely consider what I'm saying to be an exaggeration. Believe me when I tell you, it's not. Hunt is a game which takes concentration, communication, quick thinking, and lots of awareness. Not another shooter on console plays like this game. The steps you take, the water you cross, the traps you place, the health shot you use, and the equipment you activate, all of it makes noise. When I do something in game, anything at all that would have a realistic physical sound reacts in the same way within this game. In other words, sneaking around is pretty darn hard, but if you are successful in doing so, it proves most advantageous. Aside from simply keeping others from hearing you, A quiet soundscape for yourself opens up the ability to hear the most whisper-like sounds in the environment around you. And in so doing, you give yourself opportunity to surprise other players. So I guess what I'm saying is, noise is really important. Don't go into this experience expecting otherwise. I've spoken about this game's great sound design, but now let's focus in on its combat design. No matter what gun you are using, getting used to Hunt's somewhat clunky control scheme is a hurdle all on its own. There are two main control schemes you can choose from, Hunter and Gunslinger. Each has their own benefits, but personally I prefer to stick with Gunslinger. Whichever scheme you use, there's a sort of janky aspect the player must adjust to, especially with regards to aiming and moving during a shootout. Not to mention remembering to assign button shortcuts properly, as well as when to run and when to duck for cover. These are just part of Hunt's combat ritual. It's not exactly easy to understand at first, but the very reason Hunt's gameplay causes frustration is the very reason it's so rewarding to master. Trying to get your sight to line up just right to compensate for weapon sway is a tedious task to get accustomed to. But doing so is a must. I don't like to pretend the gameplay that Hunt offers is for everyone. However, it is very rewarding to those who can appreciate developing skills in a game. On the other hand, if you're looking for a lower barrier to entry shooter for lots of casual fun, this is not it. Games like Call of Duty are likely the better option for you. Still though, the true satisfaction one gets from nailing that headshot or landing a clutch moment, well, that's one of the best feelings I've ever had playing shooters. It's not enough that the combat feels rewarding to those who grow accustomed to it, because Hunt has some of the most satisfying gun sounds of any game. Hearing that beautiful muzzle blast at the end of your shotgun or rifle or even your pistol, followed by the pop and crack of a headshot. Oh boy, isn't that just butter? Pure butter. I love Hunt so much. Is that not clear by now? At any rate, the thrill of a full-on shootout taking place in Hunt is not the least similar to seeing who can drop shot someone better or run around the corner shooting like a mad banshee at each other in a Call of Duty match. No, the chaos of that arcade shooter is not to be replicated here. Instead, Hunt forces players to think on their feet and take risks to outmaneuver and defeat one another. Combat is both a rush of excitement and a cause to pull one's hair out. It's the feeling of being on the edge of your chair while trying to avoid the hazards in your way and get to the enemy hunters before they get to you. Perhaps it's the ticking clock of trying to revive a teammate before they burn to death or bleed out. Hunt's game design puts the player in positions that makes one uncomfortable. You are not in a traditional 3-lane or asymmetric multiplayer map, which offers no harm to your character. You are in an unforgiving bayou infested with zombies, creatures, and monsters of all sorts that want to block your path or kill you. No matter how prepared you are, the randomness of Hunt's maps will put you to the test. Surviving combat is one thing, but conquering each of your trips into the bayou is an odyssey unto itself. The world of Hunt Showdown is a set of meticulously crafted maps. The attention to detail in both the art direction and the way environments are created make this world feel real. By extension, this makes the threats that dwell in the maps feel real as well. The farms and towns are crawling with infected meatheads and hives. The roads and fields are teeming with infected hounds and immolators. The swamps and rivers are full of water devils. The map drops sound trap obstacles like horses, ducks, crows, chickens, and dogs to alert all nearby hunters to your presence. Just when you escape one thing, the world is ready to throw something else at you. You aren't allowed to catch your breath. You're supposed to be on your toes constantly. This visceral and rigorous cycle the player must endure to not only reach the boss lair, but escape it is an experience which is never constant, but always random. You don't know when you load into a match where or what monstrosities are awaiting you. It's up to the player to traverse the map and find out for themselves. This randomness makes every match feel unique, and even more so when you encounter other players. I've played Hunt for roughly a year now, and I've never had the same experience twice. This is despite there only being 4 bosses in the game: the Assassin, the Spider, the Butcher, and Scrapbeak. The variation which Hunt utilizes in its weapon design extends to these bosses as well. The Butcher is durable against fire damage and when enraged can light the room he's in on fire. The Assassin is quick and agile, but not as hard to take down as its counterparts are. The Spider can crawl fast across any surface up and down the lair, and it can inflict poison damage on the player. Fire or bleeding ammo works great against this turd. Scrapbeak is vulnerable to multiple damage types, but good luck trying to find lanterns to set him ablaze. Scrapbeak collects all the junk around the boss lair, so wounding or killing him is the only way to spawn ammo and other useful items in the area. Though he's armed with a flailing melee attack, his most challenging mechanic is the ability to throw concertina wire at his enemies. The bosses in Hunt are perhaps the only part which can get a little boring, as fighting the same 4 bosses over and over is somewhat annoying at times. Still, I find I cannot seem to grow tired of going on hunts with my friends. Just when I think I've had enough, I come back yearning for more. Hunt Showdown is definitely a game that takes time to get used to. It's definitely not for everyone, but it is most certainly one of the most rewarding multiplayer journeys I've ever had. I understand the game's limitations and some of its faults, because there are some janky moments and connection problems from time to time. There are definitely some bugs to find on occasion, but if one can overcome the game's minor pitfalls, the gameplay loop of Hunt is among the best out there, by a long shot. I've grown to both admire and respect the differences of Hunt's game design. I hope others are willing to do the same, because I truly believe it's worth it. But why don't you let me know what you all think in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and clicking that little bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any new videos as soon as they drop. Thank you so much once again. I really appreciate it, and have yourself a great day.